I'll be voting for Brian because I think he's a really cool and trustworthy person, and I think he's great to represent our school.
I'm voting for Brian because he's cool and he was the best Powder Puff coach ever.
These are the reasons why you should vote for Brian Scott. This is your shot if you don't vote for Brian Scott. This is your shot if you do vote for Brian Scott. This is your bench if you don't vote for Brian Scott. This is your bench if you do vote for Brian Scott. In all seriousness, you guys should vote for Brian Scott. For those of you know him, you know he's a great guy. For those of you who don't know him, you're missing out.
Brian is such a nice guy. He loves Riverton, so he'll get stuff done. And he's had so many years of experience, so that's why I'm voting for Brian.
I'm Ryder Nielsen.
And I'm Brock Josie.
You should vote for Brian.
Hey, I'm voting for Brian Scott because over the years I've known him, I've seen how loyal of a friend he is, and with the classes we've shared, I've seen how hard he works, and that's definitely an important quality in an SBO.
Vote for Brian because he's the best, and I can't beat him at chess.
I'm voting for Brian because he's cute and bussin'.
Hi, my name is Orson Colby. I'm a USA Luge athlete, and I'm voting for Brian Scott. Reasons why I'm voting for Brian Scott is he's a very supportive person. I think he's a really good leader. He's always reaching out for us and being very supportive in the things that we do. So I think we should make this next year great, and we should vote for Brian Scott.
I'm going to vote for Brian Scott because he does track.
I'm voting for Brian because he's always gone out of his way to be my friend and make me feel included. He's so sweet and always so fun to be around.
Vote for Brian Scott.
I love Brian.
Vote for Brian because he's a G and he makes everything fun.
You should vote for Brian Scott because he's always involved in helping people.
Perfect.
I'm voting for Brian Scott because I've always voted for Brian Scott.
Take it from the main character himself. If you want a guy who will actually listen and make next year fun, Brian's your guy. So stop the BS and vote Brian Scott. Because if you don't, you're going to regret it. And I can promise you that.
Go.
I approve this message. Let's go play volleyball.
Stop it. Vote for Brian Scott. Look, it's Tyson.
I'm voting for Brian Scott because he's so awesome and I love Brian Scott.
Hey guys, make sure to vote for Brian Scott, best Powder Puff coach out there.
I'm voting for Brian because he's the nicest kid ever. He'll always be there when you need him, and who doesn't like Brian?
Hi, I'm Cecily Thomas, and I'm going to vote for Brian Scott because his smile always makes my day better.
Vote for Brian. He's the nicest guy to ever push you in the snow.
One, it's Jackson Larson here. I would vote for Brian Scott because not only is he the best looking kid in school, he's also the nicest, dopest kid in school, and you won't regret it.
Hey, my name is Vaughn Johnson, and I voted for Brian Scott because he's just a really good guy, and honestly, he's going to change the whole dynamic of Riverton for the better.
Vote for Brian!
Vote Brian Scott for the best school year yet. He keeps our best interest in mind and is a great person overall. So vote Brian for an absolute party next year.
You should vote for Brian Scott for SBO because he is the hardest worker I've met. He's super dedicated to Riverton and he knows what he's doing. He will be an awesome SBO, and that's why you should vote for Brian.
Everyone should vote for Brian Scott because he is such a good leader. He just has such good leadership skills, and he is just so cool and so fun, so why not? And he will never disappoint, so vote for Brian Scott.
I'm going to vote for Brian Scott because he's the sexiest man at Riverton High School.
Hi, you should vote for Brian Scott because he's such a great leader. He's so funny and so fun and literally brings all the school spirit, so like, well, why wouldn't you want that in an SBO? So vote for Brian Scott next year.
I think that you should vote for Brian Scott because he's so cool, so funny, and he'll make all of your dreams come true.
What's up, everybody? You should go vote for Brian because he's a great leader, a great friend, and I know he's going to work hard for our senior class.
I'm voting for Brian Scott because he's a super hype guy and he excels at whatever he puts his mind to.
Guys, Brian Scott is funny, smart, and a party person. So if you want Riverton to be a party next year, well then you better get to the polls and vote Brian Scott for SBO.
I'm voting for Brian because I feel like he's definitely ready for this. He has had the experience. He's been a class officer for sophomore and junior year at Riverton. So I feel like he's definitely prepared to be an SBO. And I feel like, honestly, he can just go up and talk to anybody. Like, I've seen it all the time, even if he doesn't know them. And he just, honestly, he gets along with everybody. And I've been able to get to know him better this year. And I just feel like he's a really great person to be your SBO for the 2023-2024 school year.
Vote for Brian Scott.
Brian is super fun to be around and he makes everyone feel welcome. Vote Brian Scott.
Okay. Hi, my name is Miriam Brigotti and I'm voting for Brian Scott because he's awesome.
Hey guys, if you're watching this video, that means you should vote for Brian Scott. Brian, he's just an all-around dude, absolutely amazing. He's a great friend, super fun to talk to, super nice. He actually cares about everyone around the school that he meets, and he really cares about the school and making a difference and making good changes. And that's just something that I really appreciate as a student, and I'm grateful for Brian, so vote for Brian Scott.
Hey guys, vote Brian Scott, April 10th. He's dedicated, hardworking, and will always have your back. Go Wolves, baby.
I'm voting for Brian Scott because he's a savage, you know, and we're going to have a senior year later.
Hey guys, vote Brian Scott because he makes you happy.
I will definitely be voting for Brian Scott for this upcoming SBO election. Brian is always at every school event. He's going all out and being, frankly, the most supportive guy there. He always comes to all the after-school sporting events, even like the band concerts and all that. He's always there and he's given 100% and showing his support for his fellow classmates. He definitely has my vote.
I'm going to vote for Brian Scott because he's a leader.
I'm voting for Brian because he's hardworking, talented, and a very handsome young man.
What's up? It's Parker. My buddy Brian Scott's running for SBO, and that is one handsome fella right there. You go and do me a favor and vote for him, alright? Tell him Parker sent you.
I personally would vote for Brian because he is so kind to everyone around him.
What's up, Riverton? I'm back. No, I don't go to your school. I will be voting for Brian Scott for SBO. Reason why? He is a very nice person. He's a leader, and he takes care of other people. Such as, he's been looking after my sons, Katie, voice correct, Katie, CE, Paki, and Elijah. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you, Brian. Please vote for Brian. CC out.
Vote for Brian Scott because he is an amazing guy and he's friends to everyone.
You should vote Brian Scott for SBO because he's a great friend, he makes you put yourself out there, and he makes such an inclusive environment at our school. So, vote Brian.
I'm voting for Brian because he always gives 100% in everything that he does. He has amazing school spirit, and he always makes sure that everyone at Riverton feels like they have a place and feels like they belong. And me and Brian also have the same fabulous initials.
You should vote for Brian because not only is he such a sweet friend, but he's also an amazing leader and loves every single one of the student body.
I'm voting for Brian because I'm in love with him.
I'm voting for Brian because he's a great leader and includes everyone.
Everyone vote Brian Scott. He's a cool guy.
I'm voting for Brian Scott because he managed to kiss Haley Butterfield. I'm voting for Brian Scott because he just understands the needs of the students. I'm going to vote for Brian Scott because he's a leader.
I'm also in love with Brian Scott and have been for 3 years. I'm voting for Brian Scott because he's the most school-spirited person I know, and he loves Riverton more than anybody else at our entire school. He dedicates all of his time to going to Riverton, and when he shows up, he really shows up. Vote Brian.
I'm going to vote for Brian because he's so irresistibly cute.
If you're trying to bench 225 like this guy, you should vote for Brian Scott.
If you want your senior year to be the best year ever, vote Brian Scott for your SBO president. He's the coolest, nicest, and funniest dude. And if you don't, you're lame. So vote for him.
Why Brian Scott? Why is he the future of Riverton? Why should he be SBO president? What makes this guy so great that you should vote him in? Let me tell you something. I've lived in 4 states. As currently, right now, I live 1,000 miles away. I was once a Riverton Silverwolf. When I tell you that I've never met somebody like Brian, I've never met somebody like Brian. This guy is everything you want in a president. I can't stress it enough. If you're someone who knows me and has seen this video, you know I'm not kidding when I talk about people. I know my people. This guy is it. When I tell you I've never met somebody as open-minded, as charismatic, right? This guy knows what he's doing. He can go into any situation and brighten up the day. I mean, he can do it. This guy is everything you need. If I'm not saying enough, I don't know what else to say. Simply put it, there's no length this guy won't go to get what everybody wants. He's fair. He knows what he's talking about. He's unruly. This guy knows what he's doing. So, to put it in simple terms, he's him. Go Brian Scott.